good? Ha! What's good with y'all, man? How y'all doing today? Now listen, it's your boy Matthew Walker, aka Just Matt. I hope y'all doing good, staying healthy, staying well, all that great stuff, man. So listen, last video we had Hakeem Olajuwon. Today we got Shaquille O'Neal. Now, as much as we know how much of a scoring machine he was, I think we might actually learn more of his IQ because he had high IQ, man. You know what I'm saying? For his size and him, you know what I'm saying, his play style, he passed the ball pretty well. You know what I'm saying? Exceptionally well. And we're going to see how he was on defense. Obviously, he got the Hall of Fame intimidator. You know what I'm saying? Super intimidating. So that alone just makes you not want to go to the basket with him. But yeah, man, we're going to see what's crack-a-lacking. Shout out Ben Taylor for making this series right here. Thinking basketball. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Without further ado, if you're new to your channel, you know what I'm saying, you can hit the like. You know what I'm saying? It helps a lot. It helps a lot with the channel, honestly. It really do. So if you don't mind hitting the like button, I'll really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? If you want to subscribe, you can. You don't have to join the family, but if you want to, you can. If you want to. But yeah, man. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video, man. 3, 2, 1. Let's get it, man.
In the last two episodes, we've seen two-way big men dominate in the golden era centers.
I saw that
but
last.
The last
that was
Goliath
crazy.
of that era was the biggest. Shaquille O'Neal.
Back to back 20-plus minute
the
videos, by the
most
way.
physically overpowering athlete.
So I'm gonna try to stay awake on this one. Wait, I'm stay awake.
He was more nimble.
I forgot who I'm watching.
He outweighed by 100 pounds.
Oh!
And at his apex, there was far
Don't
more
do
to
it,
his
Coach.
game than just bullying people under the rim.
Facts.
But what were those other pieces? And were they enough to make him the best
Look at that crossover.
big man ever?
Find out next on Track the Ball Seat. Hey.
Where's Larry Bird in all this?
Give me that.
This series tackles one question. Who was the best at his best? We start at the ABA merger and go through the best multi-year stretches, examining the legends who provided the most on-court impact. These are the greatest peaks.
Let's go. 2001. 2001.
Yep, he did. Almost put it in.
Oh, born in 2000. That's what's up. Hey! Not gonna broke, bro.
I've never seen that. The Shaq attack.
When he entered the league in 1993, Shaq
Oh,
was
yeah, we still
already
going.
a 300-plus pound physical marvel. Before O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain was the benchmark for power on the court, but Shaq took things to a whole new level. After his rookie season, they actually needed to Shaq-proof the baskets, and by his peak years in Los Angeles, he tipped the scales at around 340 pounds.
340!
His power game actually started without the ball. We rarely think of off-ball movement like this, but O'Neal created advantages by working for an extra 3 or 4
like
feet
7'2"?
that made all
That's
the
wild.
difference. With the ball on the wing, Shaq flashes to the post but is doubled, so moving it to the top creates an easier entry. And notice O'Neal sit down and drive backwards at an angle to get deeper. Same position here, only Reggie Miller sags to prevent a pass to Shaq, but O'Neal sneaks a step or two closer to the goal, and so when it's swung to the corner, Shaq again seals himself deeper to set up a dunk. This was decidedly different than Wilt, who often parked himself in a spot and waited in a fairly upright position for an entry. Right here, he could seal Bill Russell under the rim, but in general, he wasn't looking for positional advantages like this.
I see.
And while some of this is specific to an era with less bully ball in general, it's also a difference in philosophy. When Shaquille moved across the lane, he was trying to get closer to the rim.
Yeah.
Wilt would move more toward the ball. He doesn't duck in front of his man, but instead flashes to a spot like a finesse player. Take ball reversals, for example. This is okay position, but changing sides allows Shaq to get a quarter step and then chisel out a much deeper catch, and that's unstoppable. To prevent O'Neal from getting that step, savvier defenders took away his cut, but then reversing sides opened a new door because he was such a massive target. These counters are similar to perimeter players cutting backdoor off an overplay, only Shaq's counters were about grappling for position in the paint, and he's sprightly enough to make catches like this. If teams tried to overplay the baseline, he could spin out the other side for the lob. Remember, his defender is worried about Shaq getting inside that low leg to the baseline, where it's game over if he seals him off. Yet, O'Neal's quick enough to punish that overplay in an instant with those light tap-dancing feet. This is some basketball jiu-jitsu, feeling more weight on his right leg and then rolling off to go time up the lob.
Oh, quick, man, that's quick.
This explosive lateral athleticism is often overlooked in Shaq. Moving quickly at oblique angles was the basis of his power game. He would drive through his victims from the hips to overpower them with angles. Wilt didn't have that same low base explosiveness to spin or pirouette quite like O'Neal. His footwork was stiffer and he lacked the handle to set up these moves, whereas Shaq's agility combined with his weight carved out so many of his easy buckets. Shaq unleashed violence from the floor with his trunk and massive lower body. Wilt has said he was sensitive to being seen as a mere brute at the time, but Shaq leaned into this power as a way to displace opponents before he even jumped. Chamberlain was strong enough to have this effect too, moving players with his lower body, but it wasn't the norm for him like it was Shaq, who bullied players onto their heels like a basketball Yokozuna, turning 260-pound Tim Duncan into a piñata to set up this drop step. O'Neal had some finesse too. He's setting up the drop step, but Dikembe Mutombo stays square with him, so Shaq switches to the fade. This was a go-to move for him for years, often spinning to the baseline like this. And because of his 7.5-foot wingspan and jumping ability, he could fire this over giant defenders like Arvydas Sabonis. He also had surprising range on this shot, not quite to the foul line, we'll get to that in a minute, but out to about 12 or 13 feet. While he liked the drop step or that little turnaround to his right, he also had a jump hook over the other shoulder. He's denied here on his cut across the lane, which triggers that ball reversal, but Dale Davis stays with him well, and Shaq just falls back on a huge jump hook. It certainly was no sky hook. Shaq thought that shot was uncool, but it was hard to defend given his size and speed off the floor. Between his hooks, powerful spins, and fadeaways, Shaq was an all-time great playoff scorer. At his peak, he posted some of the best adjusted numbers in league history, trailing only Michael Jordan in number of stretches at this volume, and doing so on similar efficiency. I do think Shaq added a different dimension with his off-ball game. He racked up nearly 750 makes from close range in his MVP season, an outlier since those records have been kept back to 1997, and about 2/3 of those shots were assisted by teammates, which lands him between the 75th and 80th percentile historically. During the Lakers' three-peat, Shaq didn't even attempt a shot outside of 15 feet in the playoffs, and nearly half of his shots came right at the rim. So he lived off a diet of the highest percentage attempts in the sport. He added even more value without the ball as an offensive rebounder. His low post positioning battles organically segued into offensive rebounding position. Here comes that cut across the lane. It's jammed nicely, but Jackson lingers to double Shaq. So now Sam Perkins has to help off him, and the bull is loose in the china shop. Some of his prowess on the glass was just wedging himself near the hoop and out jumping people. His 7'7" wingspan helped here, and so did his incredible springiness for someone that size, and he cleans up this mess with the sledgehammer. Again, check out his feet on this play and how his twinkle toes let him reset into a bunny hop multiple times. It was almost unfair to be so nimble at that size, and boxing him out was unenviable, and the Shaq-proof basket works.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Teams
goodness.
tried all kinds of tactics. In the 2000 Western Finals, Portland went with the tag team holding method, but even
That's
those kinds of
wild.
tricks weren't foolproof. Okay, that's not right.
Let me hear you say, that ain't right.
That's crazy.
It ain't right.
Oh, here.
That Blazers team was really the only defense to slow down O'Neal during the three-peat years, swarming him regularly behind the giant
Dang.
Arvydas Sabonis, who
Dang.
was about 7'3"
Dang.
and
Oh my.
300
Oh my.
pounds himself. Sabonis had the mass to keep Shaq from completely overpowering him, and the basketball IQ to overplay that baseline move he loved. He also tried
that's
to
good
deny
defense. Good
Shaq's
shot
cut
contest.
across the lane, making him catch it 3 or 4 feet farther out, and that makes a
Sabonis
difference
is huge,
versus
bro. Look
the
at
Diesel.
Sabonis. That dude. It's a huge dude, though.
A more realistic way to slow Shaq down was to foul him. There's the traditional method where he's in close, or the legendary hack-a-Shaq, where teams
Yeah.
intentionally fouled him at the end of the quarter. It often felt like Shaq was playing on a
Look at
Nerf
Reggie.
hoop, and the downside of that was at the line he shot a Nerf ball.
Yeah,
I've never
man.
understood how deliberately fouling a 53% free throw shooter was a winning play. That would be great half-court offense back in those days. Although when Shaq was powering up next to the hoop, 53% was way better than the 75% or so he shot at the rim. Because of this, he put entire front lines into foul trouble, forcing playoff teams to keep unskilled bruising bigs on their bench just to buy minutes against him. So Shaq's attack warped the entire game like
a rumble in the
few
jungle down there,
players
man.
ever
No cap.
have, but were the
That's a
other
rumble in the
elements enough
jungle.
to make him the best center ever.
Give me that.
Birthday present. Shaquille O'Neal, who turns 27 tomorrow. Not bad. That's it from the forum. I'm Lauren Sanchez. Back to you.
Part of the benefit of Shaq's positional sparring is that it led to quick-hitting catch-and-shoot plays, or in his case, maybe I should say catch-and-dunk
Hey.
plays. And by scoring immediately, he didn't take away many opportunities from teammates by monopolizing the ball. If Shaq wasn't in a position to catch and go, one card he could play was the repost, giving the ball up to find that superior position without dribbling.
Yes, sir.
This was a natural bridge between his scoring and playmaking, where if he felt a double team in these spots, he quickly kicked it out and could repost. But if that didn't lead to deeper position, he'd play the same game again.
Yeah.
He was quite patient in these situations, waiting for defenses to commit to blitzing him, and he would move it to the direction the help came from to punish them. If the double dropped down from the top, Shaq surveyed and comfortably tossed it back out to a teammate. If it came from the
Hey.
opposite corner, right away he looked to that corner,
We
and
saw
in
it.
general he was really good at attacking the location of a double team. Allen Iverson doubles off a different Laker, and Shaq gashes it and then still cleans up the play himself with that rebounding. He could work his way through
He got good court
progressions
awareness.
too. Here's a double from the top, but New Jersey shifts its defense to take
Yeah.
away the basic kick out. So Shaq looks to the cutter, and that's picked up well, which leaves the skip pass to the opposite wing.
That's IQ
Notice
right
how
there.
he swivels his head when he catches an entry, so he can see the action unfolding and find the optimal play. And his processing speed in these spots was quite strong. He spots the double before he lands here, and then holds the defender with a no-look pass. Again, watch his head. Before the ball hits his hands, he's surveying the floor, so he knows the lane is open if his cutter has half a step, and hooks up Robert Horry with perfect touch on a bounce pass.
That's a good pass, Shaq.
Shaq was willing to try tighter passes in the paint like this.
Yup.
He sends this to open space in the middle of the lane with a little hop and a soft touch. Shaq was right-hand dominant as a passer, treating the basketball like a dodgeball, and that led to some limitations or awkward deliveries at times. He would occasionally throw one too hot or miss
Yeah.
his target like this,
Oh, okay.
although he also had some brilliant deliveries too. This looks like a skip pass, but it's a changeup that drops perfectly to a cutter.
Tough.
And on this play, he sees Iverson fall asleep, and those giant hands make this touch pass an easy bucket. Some speedy neurological processing
Simple things like
also
that.
helped
You'd be
him
surprised how many
audible at
players
times.
actually miss those
He's
type of things.
flowing
They
into a
actually
catch
miss
and
those
shoot
little
here,
passes, bro.
but switches to a pass at
That's
the
just
last
like, you know what I'm
second
saying?
after
Simple
spotting a
thing.
double. And as Coach Bird can attest to, that is just too good. For my money, Shaq is the best low post passer among the great 90s centers, but there were some holes in his vision. He could miss openings on the opposite block. He threads it once he sees Horace Grant, but a great pass arrives 2 seconds earlier. Here's that same action again over Shaq's left shoulder, and he's blind to it, and this is a connection that excellent post passers make most of the time.
I got you.
Similarly, he could also miss the baseline cut from the same side of the court.
Right there, yeah.
And I think this is the trade-off of conditioning himself to spot the double team instead of holistically reading the floor.
Mm-hmm.
He misses the easy layup here, but is quick to hit a spot-up shooter. Since he was quick to react to doubles, his teammates had some wide-open threes. This is similar to what we saw last episode with Akeem's Rockets, where surrounding him with capable shooters punished double teams, and dotting the arc with these players, and even a stretch four, optimized Shaq's inside-out value. Outside of a white-hot playoff run in 2001, those Lakers were never really a good three-point shooting team, but they had enough respectable shooters on the court to space the floor and keep defenses honest, which allowed a more defensively slanted supporting cast to play off Shaq while maintaining those offensive heights. As a result, LA's attacks were very good in the regular season and all-time good in the playoffs, able to maintain their regular season efficiency against those super stingy playoff defenses of that era, because almost no one had a way to slow down these Shaq-centric offenses. With Shaq on the bench, the Lakers' playoff offensive rating dropped by nearly 12 points during those three-peat runs to about 98 points per 100. Even a young Kobe Bryant couldn't carry that kind of roster with a replacement-level center subbed in for Shaq. Although Froby was a great fit next to O'Neal. He was already an elite offensive wing who could play make and generate his own shots. With Shaq probing for position, teams were less likely to throw defensive attention toward Kobe, who already had a bevy of isolation scoring moves to unleash, and because of Shaquille's off-ball activity, he didn't take away many touches from Bryant. O'Neal fit incredibly well next to penetrators like this because his defenders were so reluctant to leave him near the hoop, and this gave Kobe a little more airspace when attacking the cup. When bigs were forced to help, it freed up Shaq on the glass for cleanup duty. What a ridiculous duo they were. I also think there was a strong fit on defense, especially when Bryant was at his defensive peak in the year 2000. Shaq could be statuesque at times, not venturing far from the lane and often dropping deep on pick and rolls. And Kobe's ability to chase ball handlers over screens and at times hound guards at the point of attack shored up O'Neal's stationary defense. And the Diesel could be stuck in neutral for entire possessions. He stretched that 3-second rule on both ends. And despite Kobe's ball denial on Iverson here, they still give up an open jumper. There were a bunch of reasons why Shaq just camped out in the key a lot. First, his defensive strength was protecting the rim, especially against smaller wings who challenged his massive frame and his giant reach. And when he was loaded up and in position to contest, he could get to shots like this quickly. Second, he was conserving energy. It takes a lot to move 340 pounds around the court, and Shaquille was asked to play 43 minutes per game in the playoffs at his peak, and in his condition, he lacked the motor to do that while stepping out to the perimeter on defense, or even sitting down in a stance and moving more in tight spaces. There were a number of instances where he was slow getting back in transition, jogging down the court at a leisurely pace, and in some instances he never really made it back into the play. And in their playoff matchups, the Kings had some success running him until fatigue kicked in. Also, Shaq parked himself in the paint because his change of direction wasn't swift enough to make recovering easy.
Right. No,
And
fitness
he
and all that
wasn't
stuff.
fast enough to help down from the outside like the last two centers in this series.
Right.
On offense, he could dictate where
Man.
all that mass went, but having to react on defense wasn't as easy. He's not agile enough to toggle around here smoothly, and kind of bear hugs his man and ends up on the wrong side of the play.
Yeah, he's a lot less mobile.
All this was
compared
compounded
to,
by
Hakeem Olajuwon.
inconsistent
A
awareness,
lot
where
less
on
mobile.
some plays he was a bit slow to read potential threats, and on others he was sort of asleep at the wheel with a play unfolding in front of him. This shows up when we look at how opposing teams shot at the rim when O'Neal was on the court. Opponents shot slightly worse than average in 2000 and at exactly average in 2001, which is a far cry from elite defensive big men like the Spurs Twin Towers or the Georgetown centers. On the plus side, teams didn't take too many of these high percentage shots in the restricted area against O'Neal, probably due to his intimidation. In other words, there was some benefit to him lingering in the lane. Many opponents didn't want to challenge Shaq's shot blocking or take the physical punishment he could dish out on hard fouls. On occasion, he would shift into fifth gear and string together really active defensive possessions,
That was good.
leaving
That was
the
good
paint,
defense.
moving his
But,
feet,
yeah.
and giving us a glimpse at what his defense would have looked like with a high-revving motor. Of course, most of the time he roamed around the lane like a grazing elephant, so teams with jump shooting big men would punish him on the perimeter. Shaq did not want to switch onto wings and was reluctant to come out on them. Here LA sends extra help and it leads to a clean three, and teams would go at him in pick and roll, leaving his teammates on an island against the screener and ball handler, and Shaq's reluctance to venture out helped Allen Iverson with his famous 2001 outburst, and the ultimate example of this was Mike Bibby's pull-up jumper parade in the 2002 Western Finals that nearly unseated the Lakers. This also made it really easy for big men to pick and pop their way into wide-open jumpers, so when teams started torching LA like this, they would bring Shaq up to the level of the screen, where he could contest pull-ups. This was actually a major tactical adjustment in that big Game 7 comeback in 2000 against Portland, and there's one of those high-energy defensive possessions. Note that most of these shots then were long twos because there weren't many pull-up three practitioners in the league at that point.
For his size, you know what I'm saying?
In 2000 and 2001, the Lakers posted
So I
a
can understand why he
103
conserves energy. I
defensive
understand.
rating without Shaq on the court,
That's a lot to move on
slightly
the court.
ahead of
Real
league
talk.
average.
It's a big fella.
With him, they were about 2 points better, and more complex adjustments for teammates and opponent quality view him as a solid positive on defense in those seasons, although not a star. We see a similar story looking at his missed games, the same method we used back in episode 2, where in 25 contests as the only starter missing, LA was almost a 500 team, but when Shaq returned to the lineup, they played at a 62-win pace. Most of that change was on offense. Equally as impressive is how the Lakers fared without Kobe in those years. In 29 games, where he was the only starter missing, LA played at a 54-win pace with an offense nearly 3 points ahead of the league. And that's without a playmaker replacing Bryant, a testament to Shaq's offensive floor raising with a 3-and-D roster. Similarly, one-number impact metrics rank him among the all-time greats, primarily because of his offensive value. To me, there's enough value from that paint protection for him to be a decently positive defender. He was even somewhat effective as a man defender during those years, just based on his size and sheer athleticism. And the overall nature of his offense, which was off-ball, quick hitting, and so difficult to slow down, made him unique among big men in NBA history and gives him a strong argument as the most dominant big man ever.
Facts. That's one thing you can't take away from Shaq, man. He is the most dominant, in my opinion, the most dominant big man of all time, bro. In my opinion, you know what I'm saying? It is crazy how many greats, you know what I'm saying, there are, and there's just you got your pros and cons, man. Every great player got a flaw, whether it's a small flaw or a huge flaw. But they got just as much as a flaw as a strength. You know what I'm saying? So every player has their strength, you know, and their signatures, what they're known for, and what gives them the wins. You know what I'm saying? But the losses are those little flaws that kind of, you know what I'm saying, add up to their weaknesses and stuff like that. But yeah, man. But shout out to Shaquille O'Neal, bro. Most dominant force all time. Man, tough, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like the Mike Tyson of basketball. You feel what I'm saying? Like you just did not want to. You same reason why you would not want to fight Mike Tyson. The same reason why you would not want to challenge Shaq. I'm not going under the rim with Shaq. I'm not doing that, Coach. Sorry, you're gonna have to sub me out, bro. Hey, man. Shout out to Shaq again. Hope y'all enjoyed this vid right here. You know what I'm saying? Learned a lot in this vid as well. So, yeah. Thank y'all again for the support. Hope y'all stay well. Tell me, say bless. Love us very much, man. Peace. I'm out.